Hey gang, Uncle Todd here with my old pal Sonny, and we're going to take a look at another film I remember seeing as a kid. Once again, it was shown on Superhost. That guy back there. And it was pretty gruesome. I mean, especially when you're saying it's being shown in the middle of Saturday afternoon. But this film is known for some rather gruesome gore scenes, especially for the time. Principal photography was originally filmed in 1961. There is a funny little anecdote where the budget raised up considerably because they had a storm and most of the sets were destroyed and they had to all be rebuilt. Most of this film takes place on an island. A lot of sand. But it was originally filmed in 1961, released in 1964, then re-released in 1968 with some added footage that had some mild nudity and extra gore. It was a flashback sequence. I'll explain more when I get to that. And oddly enough, the gore was kept when it was put on television in the 70s. But they took out some of the screams of some of the characters. When I saw it, there was this silence in one scene when this character named Omar is getting eaten from the inside out. Now, the copy I have here that I'm using, it has that audio replaced. But it was actually rather unsettling with the sound out. And but let's get to the flick itself. It starts, if you saw pre-credit, a couple, they're out in the water and off the coast of, I'm not sure, California-ish. And they end up in the water where they get eaten by the flesh eaters, which are basically little microscopic things that eat living flesh. Then after the credits, we are introduced to our main characters, the perpetually drunk Luann Winters and her put-upon assistant Jan Letterman, who are trying to rent the plane of Grant Masterson, Grant Murdoch. Masterson, that's a writer. Grant Murdoch, and is he such a stereotypical 1950s / early 60s hero?
Let's put it another way. Do you want double your regular fee?
Now look, Miss...
Letterman, Jan Letterman.
Believe me, I'm not against money, Miss Letterman, but I'm not quite ready to sell my life.
Triple. I'll give you 3 times your regular price.
That's just about the market price for one slightly used life.
Isn't he the charmer? Yeah, get used to that because he acts like that through the whole flick. And they're our love interest. Anyway, there's this big tropical storm coming up, but Miss Winters, she's got to get to Galveston because there's a big play she's going to be in, and she can't be late. So they head out trying to race the storm. Don't quite make it, and are forced to land at the first bit of land they see. After securing the plane and getting the 2 ladies to the shore, purposely leaving the satchel full of whiskey behind on the plane, They start to wander and meet the only other resident of the island.
I'm very sorry if I frightened you.
Yes, that is the real star of this film, aside from the gory special effects, Martin Koslick. Very prolific villain actor. He's up there with George Zucco, Lionel Atwill. You know, second tier. Anyhow, he's a scientist, Dr. Martell, and Bartell. I gotta read my notes first. And Dr. Bartell was on the island doing research into crabs. He's a marine biologist. Remember that lady that died back in the beginning of the picture?
What a shame. The poor woman never had the chance.
What caused it?
Sharks, I guess.
Marine biologist. Full skeleton. Yeah, shark did it. Actually, Murdoch points out that the fallacy of that thought. And yes, for you sharp-eared viewers who are fans of 50s sci-fi, that is the sound effect of the ants from Them. Anyway, the storm is coming, and the party has to get under shelter. So they head to the doctor's lab, which is basically just a big tent behind a sand dune. Storm passes through, but Murdoch can't leave yet because one of the reasons they landed was the carburetor was freezing up. So it's got to thaw out, and stuff's got to dry out, and blah, 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 blah. Later on, we learn that Dr. Bartell might know something about what killed that girl.
You're a bit early, my little lovelies. The wind must have hurried you here. That means that I must hurry too.
I can't believe a friendly, foreign-accented scientist would actually turn out to be a bad guy. Meanwhile, Miss Winters has gone back to the plane and gotten totally blitzed and passes out in front of the plane, which Bartell then takes advantage of. No, not that way.
I close my eyes, I can see his face right there.
Leaving the rope in Winter's hand, the next morning they find the plane missing, her holding the rope and passed out. They make the assumption that she caused them to lose the plane, and when she wakes up, she agrees. She must have. She doesn't remember a thing. But there's the evidence. They also find tons of fish washed up on the shore, all glowing. And they realize, or Bartell realizes, telling them that it must be some kind of microbe that eats flesh. And they can see the glowing phosphorescence of the creatures all along the shore. They cannot get into the water. Bartell tries to get a sample, which he puts into a metal case. But, well, they have an interesting property to them.
You think you might be able to find a way to handle this stuff?
Well, I can't be sure. I have only the barest of equipment with me. But perhaps we'll be lucky. We may find some quite simple means of controlling them. After all, we possess intelligence. They do not. Of course you understand the important thing for us to learn is just how we can... Ah!
Yep, they'll eat through metal to get the flesh. Amazing creatures. Well, about this time, we meet the last of our cast members, or castaways as it were. As on a makeshift raft, we meet Omar, the hippie. No, hippies weren't really a thing yet. Omar the beatnik.
Hey! Stop! Stop!
Don't move, my friend. Don't move a step.
What is it? That's not the weapon, man. Love is the weapon.
Shut up and hold still.
What?
And we get probably our most interesting, or at least entertaining character, Omar, who talks a mile a minute, ends sentences with man, and talks about love. Very proto-hippie beatnik. After everyone has a meal of canned food, Murdoch and Jan go off and start to get close. You know, prerequisite for these films. You gotta have a love interest. And they also discover a large solar battery, about the size of a cinder block. Enough power to... I hate when I do that. This thing's huge. It could power a city. Well, not a city, a block. City block, let's say. They want to know what he's got this for. And Bartell, being the charming rogue he is, calmly explains it's to power his experiments and electricity for his camp. He does manage to grab some samples of the flesh eaters in a glass tube, which seems to contain them. Putting them in a fishbowl, he gathers everyone around to try an experiment.
I think you've done it, Professor.
Yes, I think I have.
So, they quickly make plans to stretch cables from the power cell down to the beach, toss it in, and electrocute them. But while they're doing all this work, Bartell's been keeping a watch on the flesh eaters, and after an hour, they come back to life. While the plans are being formulated and the wires being stretched, the supply boat comes a day early with disastrous results.
Heading straight into him! Turn that wheel, man!
Told you it was gory. For the time. Now, Dr. Bartell, he's got a bit of a problem. In that hour that the flesh eaters will be dormant, the rest of the people could escape on Omar's raft. So, he invites Omar in for a drink before they get to their work, and surreptitiously spikes his drink with some of the revived flesh eaters.
It's nothing inside me!
Now, when I saw this, the moment he starts to scream, saying they're eating their way out of it, the sound cut off. And you see him silently scream into the microphone of the tape recorder, which to me seemed more unsettling than seeing him just scream. I don't know. I view it as a good change to make the film more unsettling. Now he then takes Omar's dead body with the tape recording, straps him to the raft, and sends it out into the ocean.
What happened, Bartell?
He slipped away from me. I warned him, but he wouldn't listen. He was only interested in saving himself.
Listen to those screams. They're eating him alive.
They now redouble their efforts to get the electric cables laid and shock the creatures, although they don't have a way to escape. But still, killing them is important, as they're a menace to everything and everyone. Winters goes back to the tent to rest, and she discovers his secret. She then unbuttons a few buttons on her blouse, puts on some perfume, and goes to seduce the doctor, saying she knows his secret. And she wants to be on the winning side. So, she'll be his lover, and she won't tell the other two, and they can die. He seems amenable to that. After digging a makeshift grave for her, he turns to the beach where Murdoch and Jan, whose suspicions throughout all this have been climbing, finally refuse to go any farther with the work. So he pulls out a gun and starts to explain in a massive information dump what's going on. Essentially, after the war, he was contacted by the American government because of his ability to read and translate German, and was given all these Nazi scientist notes. That's where he discovered their experiments with the flesh-eating microbes. And originally, they had sent a canister off the coast of Florida by submarine, and it was set to release, at which point it would lay waste to the Allies. Never got released. Something must have been wrong with the timer, don't know. But he destroyed the notes so that he would be the only one to know about the flesh eaters. And then when he started seeing reports just a few months back about bodies of glowing dead fish washing up on the shore, he knew perhaps the canister had leaked or whatever, but they were out. And by calculating sea currents, he realized they would be coming to that island eventually, and so he set up shop. His plan now: execute the flesh eaters, and send Murdoch out to see if they were dormant, and then wait for them to come back to life, or they'll be more powerful than ever. He yelled, but yeah. Now, in the middle of this, we have a big flashback to the Nazi experiments, narrated by Koslik. Interestingly enough, when they came to Koslick to do the narration, he demanded more money. And being on a tight deadline, they gave it to him. So he got an extra payday out of it. Anyway, the footage adds nothing to the story, and the narration is just narrating what we can actually see, which is basically a bunch of nude women jumping into a pool, a lot of foggy smoke, and then a skeleton being pulled out. Until you get to the last of the flashbacks, in which it's a male dead body, which does not get eaten. And the whole point of it is to add some titillation with the scantily clad nude women and some more gore. Then Bartel sends Jan back to his tent for some equipment he needs, where she sees that the revived flesh eaters have morphed into something horrifying. When she gets back to the beach to warn them, it's too late. Murdoch's been forced to make the connection, and the flesh eaters are zapped. We then get two important things to happen. One, we see what the flesh eaters have morphed into.
Preposterous, huh, Martel? Okay, suppose you give us an answer for this thing.
A nucleus. A charge of energy bound the amino acids together. And it forms.
Yeah, a nucleus. Sure, whatever. He finds out that bullets don't hurt it. Well, now they got a problem. And in running away, they find the other big event. Number 2, Winters wasn't dead, and she dug herself out.
You'll die first, Bartel! You'll die first!
Kind of a Hitchcockian flair there with that gun. Same thing Hitchcock used in, I believe, Spellbound. Well, since they now have a dead body to feed the flesh eater nucleus, he was going to use the other two, but you know, he sends it down, and they make an amazing discovery. Examining the remains, they find that the blood that dripped from the dead Winters had gone down into the nucleus through its eye and blew up. Now the microscopic ones, they eat the flesh and the blood just flows around them, not into them. So now they have a way to kill it. So they go back to the tent, make a makeshift hypodermic, yay big, and fill it with their own blood. While rushing back to the beach, Dr. Bartel, who at that point had used all his bullets, managed to grab an extra clip and reload, and decides he doesn't want Murdoch to kill it. He has other plans, so they have a fight. Needless to say, it doesn't end well for him. Well, Murdoch wades out to the creature with the other flesh eaters that weren't affected by the shock, trying to eat through the wetsuit. But he manages to get up and climb. Actually, he gets lifted to the eye of the flesh eater and does his thing. And he makes it back to shore, stripping off the wetsuit that has flesh eaters on. I'm not sure. They embrace and walk towards the interior of the island. The end. Don't explain if they're able to get off. I suppose someone will come looking when the guy who runs the supplies doesn't come back. But are there other flesh eaters still there? Did its explosion destroy this? I don't know. They don't really explain. So it's kind of a open-ended, but not. It's a fun little flick. Kind of mean-spirited in some ways. The nastiness of the doctor feeding another person flesh eaters and then watching them eat their way out, and the murder of Miss Winters, and and the gore effects, the skeletons and things. And villain got a great comeuppance, in which he kills himself as the flesh eaters are eating him alive. Really good stuff. Pretty good cast. The two people that played Omar and Jan, they really didn't have a lot of credits. Now, Rita Morley and Brian Saunders, who played Llewellyn Winters and Grant Murdoch, they are best known for the roles they had on the soap opera Edge of Night. But the big star is Martin Koslick. Your go-to back during the early 40s when you wanted a nasty Nazi in your war film. In fact, he played Joseph Goebbels in 3 films. Feshes of a Nazi Spy, Hitler's Gang, and in the 60s, the movie Hitler. He's also known as for his horror roles in films like Mad Doctor, Frozen Ghost, House of Horrors, and a sympathetic role in She-Wolf of London. In the 50s and 60s, of course, he was more of a East German spy, we should say, or a Russian spy, whatever, in films like Smuggler's Cove and the pilot for Agent for Harm. And, of course, he made many TV appearances on, like, Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Batman. A really good actor. And he also did the serial Great Alaskan Mystery, in which he was, again, an enemy agent. Really good. And he owns this film. He is so sinister and yet never goes over the top. He was always very controlled in his performances, but always good at just being that sinister, nefarious villain. And this is probably one of his better low-budget horror films. In House of Horrors, he was teamed with the unfortunate Rondo Hatton, who died fairly soon after that film was completed. He had completed The Brute Man after that and then passed away, but he was a sufferer of acromegaly, which distended his face and body, and it was kind of sad as he was exploited for his looks, but he willingly did it to make money and because he wanted to act. And of course, in Frozen Ghost, he was opposite Lon Chaney Jr., who played a good guy in that one. So, and he blew Chaney off the screen. Chaney, big star at that time, and unfortunately also an alcoholic, was not pleased and did not like working with him. They also worked together in The Mummy's Curse, in which in the climax it was said that Chaney was a bit rough with Koslick, kind of getting his frustrations out on the other actor, as they say. But yeah, it's a pleasant little film. It, like Killer Shrews I did last month, is a film that stuck to me from childhood. I mean, having shown you some of the nastier scenes, it's unbelievable this played on TV. But that was common back in the 70s. They rarely edited, except for nudity. Violence? Yeah. Topless woman? Oh my God. So yeah. Played uncut. Well, no, they took out the flashback because that had, the naked women and all that. But, yeah, pretty crazy. A lot of films like that played on TV. Night of the Living Dead would play. Uncut. And that's, just seen that, Very groundbreaking. Not just in social commentary, but in gore effects, too. But, hey, that was the 70s. Back when they didn't think this thing would affect kids. These films stuck with me for most of my life. In a good way. Well, please hit like, share, and subscribe. And stay after the credits for my favorite scene.